Thanks again for joining me. It's Azure Chris, and we're going to continue on our 10 steps to get started with Azure for Partners. Today on my list, number 2, Azure Lighthouse. So Azure Lighthouse is a feature or functionality that was built into the Azure platform that allows you to import or logically project one tenant into another. So say you're a managed service provider and you want to manage customer A, B, and C at different scopes. Maybe one a subscription and the other two maybe just a resource group. Without your customers having to create credentials or groups for each one of your groups to perform tasks and having you to log into each one of the tenant one at a time, you can now leverage your Azure Active Directory identity and perform tasks at scale. So you would create all your RBAC rules with the roles here, so a SQL database administrator group or a virtual machine administrator group or maybe even billing, and you'd be able to perform tasks at scale. So maybe you want to use Azure Policy and push down policies to all your customers and make sure they achieve governance, right? You can do that, or maybe even Azure Sentinel without having to pop into each one of your customers. So great benefit. We're going to jump onto the desktop. We're going to do a little bit more theory. I'll show you how to do an onboard, and then I'll show you what it looks like in the Azure Portal. Let's just jump right into it. So hey everybody, thanks again for sticking with me. We're talking about Azure Lighthouse now, and we're going to start with my blog page. You can go to azurechris.com, check it out. High level, once again, right? Not too much here, but there's a couple of links, really a few links that I've added to my page, and I think it's really a good launching pad for you. Great place to get more information. I think that's where a lot of the value is. So we're going to start with the first link here, and that's going to take us to Azure Learn site. Azure Learn is labs Microsoft provided for free, so take advantage of it. We're going to jump into the fourth page here, and I just kind of want to go over some of this theory, right? So we have the Azure Resource Management templates. This is a way to onboard Azure Lighthouse. And really the magic behind Azure Lighthouse is the delegated resource management, right? So we talked about logically projecting one tenant into another. Really, that's the magic behind it, right? Delegating resource management. So you're saying, hey, Mr. Managed Service Provider, I'm a customer and I don't have the skill set to take care of my Azure environment. Can you please take care of this for me? I'm going to delegate my resources to you and you can be admin on behalf for me, right? So that's what they reference when they say delegated resource management. And in order to do that, you need, one of the methods is Azure Resource Management templates, right? So Azure Resource Management templates are JSON templates. That's another kind of coding or another underlying infrastructure technology that's in the Azure platform that you could use, as well as PowerShell, Azure CLI, right? And we'll get into kind of what the JSON template looks like. But first we want to talk about, we talked about the groups, right? And I said, so you have a database group, and you're the managed service provider, and you should set up your RBAC roles accordingly in those groups and what those role assignments are going to be, right? You have a database management role, maybe a group, right? Maybe you have a subscription group, right? And they're going to manage the subscription for your customer. Really set up all those groups that you think you're going to use your managed service provider. Maybe you have another one for virtual machines, right? Set those all up and really set up those role assignments. And then you'll need those when you set up the JSON template because that's called the authorization piece, right? They cover the two different methods actually to onboard, and we'll cover the second method. It leverages the Azure Marketplace, and you can do a public and private offering. But with the Azure Resource Management templates, this is really just a custom way. I think it's the quickest to onboard a customer, and the other way is outside of the scope for this quick snippet webinar here. So we talked about JSON templates. You might say, hey, it's out of the realm. I don't know how to write templates. Well, that's the beauty of it. The Microsoft community has gone out and made some templates for you already created. And we talked about the different scopes. So your managed service provider, maybe you're going to take care of a customer's whole subscription, or maybe you're going to take care of just the resource group, or maybe multiple resource groups, right? They've created JSON templates for each one of those scenarios, right? So if I pop into here and we look at the GitHub repository, you can see the files here. They talk about what Microsoft Azure Lighthouse is. And then you can see the different templates they have. They have the subscription, the resource group, and multiple resource group. From here, your customer, you can send them here. They can deploy it right into their environment, or they can download the template. Really best thing is for you to download the templates make the changes to them, then work with your customer to onboard and import them into their tenant, unless you do the other marketplace option, which makes it easier, right? So you have the resource manager template, you downloaded it from GitHub. There are two files that you get. You get the template file and you get the parameter file. So the template file is really all the logic, right? So that's the one that does all the kind of work in the Azure platform with setting up the environment and doing the heavy lifting. The parameter file is what's used for like your variables, right? So what are you going to call your managed service provider offering? What is this information that you're going to input into Lighthouse? This is the template, kind of like a generic one that they show you. But these are the values that you're going to need to concern yourself with. Like I said, what's your MSP offer name? What's your MSP offer description? What's your MSP tenant ID, right? And you can get that from your environment. And we talk about a lot of this information that you'll need, and they show it here. What's the principal ID? So every time you create a group in Azure, whether it's a subscription management group or a database management group, it creates a principal ID associated with that. So if you guys are familiar with like Azure Active Directory or whatever, it's kind of like your SID or whatever, right? There's always that ID that's underneath, right? And that's the same thing here, right? The other ID is the role definition, right? So what is that? So if you're a contributor or global admin, all of those have IDs as well. So instead of using the names, they actually use the IDs. So you'll have to understand what that is to be able to edit your parameter file. So you give that to your customer, and then that's what they import, okay? And then this Azure Learn goes into the importing of the templates, and I'll walk you through that, right? I'm going to jump here to my blog real quick and show you the next page. It's onboarding a customer into Azure Lighthouse. This is the Microsoft documentation, not the Azure Learn. This is the whole Lighthouse documentation, the how-to guide, step-by-step, all the stuff we're talking about. This is how to get your subscription ID, whether you want to use PowerShell, CLI. They talk about your roles and permissions and defining those, how to find the information. So what is the role definition ID? How do I get that? How do I get my principal ID? How do you find that? So, I wanted to kind of give you this information to understand if you're not comfortable with PowerShell or Azure CLI to get that information to configure your offer name and your authorizations and all that stuff that they talk about here, I provided this other documentation on the blog here, and this is a great link. It's the Azure built-in roles, okay? So let's jump into the Azure Learn, and you say, all these role definitions, I don't know what these are, right? I don't know what this role definition ID is. So let me copy this, okay? And then I'm gonna jump back into that document that I just pulled open. I'm going to do a Control F and I'm going to paste it. Well, there we go. The ID that's associated with the one that was in that template belongs to contributor. So now we know when we look at that template and they have the automation account, that's what we're granting them. We're granting them contributor, right? And then if I were to look at the other one and I would jump back in here and I'll do Control A, Control V, we're giving it log analytics contributor. So now I could see what's given or what I want. If I want to give a contributor, or if I want to get, there we go, SQL security manager, SQL server contributor. Now I could just go like this, copy it and put it in my template and add it to the SQL database administrator, right? So that's how I kind of leverage that, and I wanted to provide this for you, right? The reason you would do maybe the policy automation, right? There's some default ones. And you know what? I'm going to show you my Visual Studio code now. Let's jump into my code. So I went to GitHub, I pulled the templates down, I downloaded them. This is the template file, like I said, with all the logic that does the heavy lifting. And this is my parameter file. And I did this because, for continuity's sake, so I download the file, I make the changes, I save it, and then I can go back historically, I can make changes without changing it in the Azure Portal, and I'll show you that after. So I have a couple of accounts here, the Lighthouse Service Administrator, Policy Administrator. These are default ones. They're in the template. You'd probably want to keep them because these accounts are used just in case you terminate your managed service provider offering with your customer. So if you end up canceling that contract with them, you can remove Azure Lighthouse and do things around that, kind of controlling the tenant, right? And you need these accounts to do that, right? So I've made my changes to my parameter file. I added my offer name, the description. I could have added something more there, my tenant ID, which is grayed out for security purposes. So I have that now. I've created it, and I don't maybe I don't feel comfortable with the Cloud Shell and I don't feel comfortable deploying it like this. There's another way to do it, right? You can import templates through the Azure Portal, right? So I logged into the Azure Portal, and you would want to tell your customer, hey, Mr. Customer, you want to deploy a template. These are the template files. This is what you do. I'd click on Create a Resource, and I can go to the search page here and type in template, and then you see template deployment, deploy using custom template. All right, so you have them click on that. They do create. And from here, you can use this for other scenarios as well. So say you have a virtual machine and you want to build a few virtual machines that are all the same, you can use templates to do that, JSON templates. So there's a lot of value. And when they start talking about infrastructure as code, really that's what they're talking about. It's a lot of these templates. So once we're here, we go build your own template in the editor. This takes us to the main template file. I want to load file, and it takes me to my location here where I downloaded the GitHub file. And this is the main template file, like I said, with all the logic in it. And then I would have them click Save. And then I'm going to have them go to Edit Parameters. And this is the parameter file that you've added all your managed service provider information to. So they would select that. This is the one I've edited. Like I said, you can edit it here. They can make changes to it, but it's easier that you've already had it. You have a copy of it, and it's saved on your desktop. I would then click Save. You can see all the information that you provided in your parameter file now gets displayed here. They can then do review, create, does some validation, everything is good there, and then I can click create. I've already gone through the creation process for you, so I'm going to back out, and now once they would deploy that, they would see the little bell notification here, kind of importing that JSON template. Once they finish, and they see that completed, they can do a search for Azure Lighthouse. You can see how I've searched up here. Azure Lighthouse comes up, and now we jump into that feature or that part of the Azure Portal here, right? This blade. The main page here is, managed customers, open marketplace, and managed service provider offerings, right? They don't have customers, but they want to look at the offering that they have. I've already gone through and I've added that to the blade. I'll just click on here. It would take you to the same location. You just drill down. And then they would look at the delegation. So they've delegated access to their tenant to you. So they have to look at delegations. And here we go. They see, hey, I have a service provider offering. This is the name of the managed service provider. This is the offer name based off the parameter file. And this is the role assignments that they've granted access to, right? And if they click on the role assignments, another blade comes up and they see all the information and who has access to what and what are the group assignments and who's delegated. So already they have more information, they can see things, and they didn't have to create a new user account. They didn't have to create multiple groups for you. They didn't have to go through and manipulate all the role IDs, because generally customers might not even be aware of how to do that, right? So the next step for them to do is click on the offering itself. They can click on it, and now they jump deeper into Azure Lighthouse. From here, they can look at the activity log, right? And they can say, without combing through the main activity log for each resource or Azure Monitor or things like that, they can go here and look at everything that the offer has done, right? So what has my managed service provider done? He's deleted a disk. Oh, he's deleted a virtual machine. They can then look at it and what's failed, what's updated. They can then reach out to you and say, hey, I want more information about that. Or they can use this for auditing purposes if they need to be compliant, things like that, right? So, that's a lot of value for them to see as far as the customer, right? I'm going to jump into the other view. So you can see how I'm jumping in and out of different accounts here. I'm going to jump into the managed service provider account. So this is what you guys would see giving the offer to the customer. And you guys, as the partners, do not have to jump in and out of accounts, or you don't have to go to directories and drill down into each directory for each customer. You can then go up here, search Azure Lighthouse, that's up. I've also added it to the side of my blade. I've clicked on my customer. You can see that here, and then we can drill down. Now, because you're the managed service provider, you are the partner, you can look at the customers and you'll see that. So I have a couple of customers. I've filtered by different customers here. This one was already created, and I just added this one. This is the template that I just showed you. I'd click on that. It takes us to the same location that they saw on their end, right? Where they can click on the role assignments and all that. But for you guys, you'd want to click on your offer, and now you have the same blade that you see that the customer saw. But for you, there's more kind of magic. There's more options here underneath the hood. So now, once this comes up, it dumps you into the overview and you can see the same things, right? So the activity logs there and all that stuff. So really this is where the value is. So now I didn't have to jump into my customer and I get to see their Azure cost management and billing, right? So this is very big, very important for a lot of the partners out there. They want to be able to look at the customer spend. They want to be able to keep track of it. They don't want to have to bounce in and out of each customer to look at that. They can see this information. They can look at the cost alerts, the budgeting, the Azure Advisor. And if you guys aren't familiar with Azure Cost Management and Billing, I have another blog on azurechris.com. I go through this information. I kind of go through high-level steps of how to use all these different features and stuff. So feel free to touch on that. But once you looked at cost management billing, you can also drill down even deeper now. So now you can go into the resource groups. So now I want to look at my customers' resource groups. Hey, they have a Citrix resource group. They have a production resource group. Oh, they have a couple of other Citrix and WVD. Maybe we're doing a proof of concept for VDI for them, right? Let's jump into their production resource group. This is all the stuff that they have in this resource group, right? I can drill down into a virtual machine here, which happens to be their domain controller. I can perform actions to this. I can change networking, disk size, size of the virtual machine, right? I could bounce back into the resource group. I can click add, and now I could start procuring stuff directly into the resource group, right? I don't have to bounce and, like I say, jump in and out of different customers. I can do it directly from here, right? So really great. I can then go down and toggle from here. I can look at all the resources. I can add resources from here as well, not necessarily assigned to a resource, where I can create a new resource group or what have you, right? I can also drill down and look at policies like we touched on earlier. If I wanted to push Azure policies down to my customers at scale, I can do that here. So really a lot of benefit of being able to kind of drill down into these things, look at why they're not compliant. I haven't really drilled down into directories or anything. Everything is right here at my fingertips. So I really wanted to just cover that stuff. There's actually one more thing I want to show you, and that was around the other method, high level. I provided documentation here. So that was the Azure Resource Management template method to onboard into Azure Lighthouse. The other method is to go to Microsoft Partner Center and create an offer through the commercial marketplace, where they would see and be able to kind of purchase that offering through their Azure tenant. So if I were to bounce back, or I might be able to just do it through here. I can go to Azure Lighthouse and I can look at managed service offerings, service provider offerings. If they were to look at something like that, they can see all the offerings here. So if you did it through the Microsoft Partner Center, your offering is going to look like this, where you see descriptions of, hey, help companies develop and optimize scale, whatever your MSP offering is going to be. So it makes it easier. They would just click on it, they would accept it, and from there, they would be able to work with you. So those are the two options, high level. Just wanted to go through that, guys. I want to make this stuff really quick and easy for you. Hopefully this wasn't too long. Click like, click subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, please feel free to reach out to me, azurechris.com. Reach me on Twitter, reach me on LinkedIn, and I'll be sure and happy to help you. I hope you find this beneficial, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care, guys.